Do you want to learn how to get retired, stay retired, and enjoy your life to the fullest? This is the Retire Happy Podcast with certified financial planner professional Jeremy Finger. Jeremy will be your guide to happiness as he discusses the art and science of retirement, breaking down the complicated information to help you make good financial decisions without worry or burden. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Retire Happy with Jeremy Finger. Jeremy, what's going on, my man?
Oh, it's all good, brother. As always, it's all good.
Well, it's not just all good. It's better today because you've got a guest on the show. Sometimes you have me and we just talk back and forth, and I just feel like I'm completely out of my element with all the stuff you're teaching me. But you've brought a guest on to have a more educated and enlightened conversation today. I'll just be the one to say that.
Yeah.
So who'd you bring on?
We brought on Meghan Barnes from Pawleys Island, South Carolina. Is going to share with us all the legal documents that we need to make sure we're protecting ourselves, protecting our family from taxes, probate, and all these other things that a lot of times people just want to be like ostriches and stick their head in the sand and avoid it. If I avoid it long enough, it'll go away. But Eric, as you know, like death and taxes come to us all, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, this is timely. I told you that I drove through Texas for a while. Well, we went to visit my grandmother, and I learned a new term, a ladybird deed, something rather.
A ladybird deed?
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's, transfer of a house kind of thing. And, I'm learning some things about some estate planning. So I'm here to learn some more. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Meghan.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, that's all Jeremy. He's the one that picks the great guests. I just sit back and listen. So take it away.
Perfect. Well, Meghan, thank you for joining us, and really appreciate you having you here on the show, and share with us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and we'll kind of get into the meat of this thing.
Sure. So my office is in Pawleys Island, South Carolina. I've been here about 7 years. Prior to that, I was in Charleston for a little bit for law school, and then Columbia, South Carolina. And then moved back to the beach and wanted to be in a small town. So enjoying small time beach life.
It's small for now, but the way people are moving in here, we'll be a booming metropolis probably by next week.
That's right. New neighborhoods every other week, it seems like.
That's right. A lot of our listeners are here that are in their mid to late 50s, 60s. And so what are some documents, what are some things that they need to be thinking about as far as estate planning is concerned to make sure that their wishes are taken care of and some of the obstacles are avoided that they need to have in place legally?
There are a few documents that everybody needs. One is a healthcare power of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
That's a document where you name an agent to make healthcare decisions for you in the event that you are ever unable to make them yourself, right? So we usually name one primary agent, and I like to have one or two successor agents named as well. Along with a healthcare power of attorney, we have a document called a living will, also known as a declaration for a desire for a natural death in South Carolina. This is a document where you spell out end-of-life decisions. So whether you want artificial nutrition and hydration or don't, and if you want to die naturally, you can make that election on that South Carolina form. Those are your main two healthcare documents, And then we look to having a general power of attorney. So this is where you appoint an agent to make financial decisions. Who is going to be the person that pays your bills, files your tax returns, and manages your day-to-day affairs in the event you're ever unable to do so yourself?
I imagine you got to really make sure that you're choosing the trusted person for that one.
Absolutely. Very important to make sure that whoever you appoint is financially savvy, business savvy, and also very responsible and trustworthy, right? They have a lot of authority and a lot of power to act on your behalf under this document. Mm-hmm. And with that power and with that authority comes a lot of temptation as well.
Yeah. So what are some options for people? Let's just say I mean, what first thing comes to mind? What if what if you're in a family full of crazies? It's like, what do you do?
Right.
Who do you choose? Like, what are some options?
Yeah, I get this question all the time, right? I'm not married and I have 3 children that I would never let access my bank account. Um, so ideally we like to have a family member or friend serve in that role.
Mm-hmm.
But if there isn't anyone, there are entities that will do this for you, serve in this role. I tell people to look to their CPA and talk to their CPA. A lot of CPAs were willing to do that for their clients. I get the question all the time, well, can my financial advisor do this? Most of the time the answer is no, right? There's
a conflict of interest. That's right.
But feel free to have that conversation with your advisor. And a lot of times advisors work with, professional fiduciaries that will serve in that role for their clients.
Yeah. Okay. Is there, let's just say a CPA agrees to do it. I mean, I imagine there's an extra cost usually involved in that. And look, if I were a CPA taking on that responsibility, I mean, it's not for nothing. I mean, I might love you, but that's going to take some time and responsibility to be able to take on that role.
Absolutely. So, and there's usually 2 different ways, professional fiduciaries will charge either hourly, kind of like an attorney would do, or percentage based on the amount of assets under management.
Okay.
Sliding scale, 1%, 2% annually of assets they're managing.
Okay.
Similar to a trustee's fees.
Okay. What would happen, like, if someone just said, I'm not doing any of this stuff, and they pass away without any documents? What normally happens in that situation?
Well, based on the documents we just talked about, so powers of attorney. So these are documents that are valid while you're still living.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to get in a car accident or you develop dementia or some other cognitive impairment that you were unable to make your own healthcare decisions or pay your own bills or manage your finances, and you were to become incapacitated without the power of attorney in place, your family member or a friend is going to petition the court in the county where you reside to be appointed as your guardian or conservator. And so what that means, the guardian has control over the person's person. So this is going to be who's making your healthcare decisions, deciding where you live, and the conservator is going to be the person who manages your finances. Okay, similar to a power of attorney. However, when you have a conservatorship, the conservator usually has to get either a fiduciary bond, okay, for the amount of assets they have under management, or get something that's called a restricted account agreement. Okay, that's an agreement with a bank that the bank says you are not allowed to withdraw any money from this bank account unless you have a court order. In addition to those requirements, you have to file an inventory showing the court everything that the person has or owns, and an accounting annually showing all the income that's come into the conservatorship and all the expenses you've paid out. So there's constant oversight. It's a very expensive process and a very burdensome process for the individual that ends up becoming that conservator. And I see all the time individuals and older adults who, like you mentioned earlier, don't want to name a child as their POA. So they just don't sign one at all. And then who ends up becoming the conservator? The child that they didn't want, because the child has the highest priority to serve, right? And there's nothing else to say.
Either you choose it or it will be chosen for you.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right.
Yeah. You mentioned about like let's just say, for instance, that I were a child, right? And my parent or parents didn't set things up like using your services, right? And all of a sudden this was dumped on me. It could be really overwhelming, I would imagine.
It is. It's an overwhelming job. And usually I find that the people that aren't signing powers of attorney don't have all of their assets together, right? We're kind of got our assets spread out all over the place. We are either private and we haven't told anybody what we own. Got paper bonds, I-bonds, or, life insurance policies that we aren't aware of, online bank accounts that we aren't aware of. So it's a big job for someone to come in and track down assets and then report all of those assets to the court. It's a big job, and it can be very overwhelming for someone.
Yeah. I mean, I kid you not. This past weekend, I went and saw my mom up in Columbia, and my nephew had a birthday party, but we started talking, and she's like talking about antiques, and I could give nothing. I could care less. Does it hold the cup of coffee, or does it hold the book? All right, that's fine. But she's like, oh, but this is like a baker so and so, and I'm like, well, where is it? And she's like, I've got somebody in Marion holding it, and this and that. It'll be really good someday. I'm like, Mom, first off, until 3 seconds ago, I never knew this existed. The second thing is, I love you, but if something happened to you, me and my sister aren't going to give a darn about this thing. It's like, and this is just one thing that she thinks is important, but the next generation is like, it doesn't. There's a lot of complexity in being able to deal with this. Calling just for this one thing.
That's right.
So I can't even imagine what it would be like if you had all the estate not organized.
That's right. And it's amazing what people collect that has significant value that you and I wouldn't know anything about, right? Or maybe we would, but so a lot of us know baseball card collections have value, but just somebody was in my office yesterday with he collects antique cars, and one of the cars he has came with a coffee table book, and this is like a old Porsche, and there were only like very few of these coffee table books made, but the book itself is worth close to $4,000. Like, right, so I wouldn't know if I walked into someone's house and this coffee table book that came with a special car, and there were limited amounts made, and it was extremely valuable. So if you have items like that, or any kind of collectibles or antiques, it's important to let someone know, whether it's just, a lot of my clients just write a letter and say, this book is valuable. Don't drop this off at Goodwill.
Okay. All right. So let's play that out a little bit. All right. Okay. This letter that they write, or I'm assuming that you help clients think through this process.
That's right.
All right. Great. Let's say they have these documents. All right. And you where do you keep these documents in? And how is the communication to that next generation so that, hey, you can have the greatest documents in the world, but no one knows where to get them or what to do with them. It doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. So when I create an estate plan for somebody, and the estate plan includes the healthcare power of attorney, the living will, the general power of attorney, and then documents that control what happens after you die, like a will or a trust.
Right.
I usually tell my clients, don't give copies of all these documents to your children, right away, because you may change your mind in the future. A healthcare power of attorney, we can distribute that, but the will or the trust, keep those documents in a safe place, and give your child this form that you can fill out to say, hey, if something happens to me, here's more of my original documents are kept. A fireproof safe at home, a safety deposit box. Here's who to call. Here's Jeremy's number.
That's
all my assets. Yeah. Here's my attorney's name. This is my CPA. Right. This is where you find all of the information you need to manage my estate or probate my assets or distribute the assets, through the trust, whatever it may be. Kind of the roadmap for your children or for your heirs or whoever it may be.
Okay. So you're giving them in advance who to contact.
Right.
Kind of thing. Yeah. So what we do is we have a digital vault that our clients hold all these documents in. And one of the things we try to do, sometimes it's like twisting arms, but let's make sure we get contact information for the next generation. So like, hey, Peggy Sue calls up. All right, who's Peggy Sue? It's not on any. We don't see this anywhere. So we try to preempt that.
Yeah. Yeah. And do I have the authority to talk to them?
That's right. That's one of the things throughout our processes is that, okay, hey, do you have the documents? Where are the documents? Hopefully we can hold them here in a digital vault. And then who is the people that may be contacting? And then they call up. And look, unfortunately, this happens a lot, but in reality, that's not unsurprising, right? You get a phone call a family member died. We had one in here a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot of burden, and trying to alleviate some of that burden with some of the good work that you do, and going methodically through the step-by-step processes of the next things that needs to be done is gives that next generation a bit of a peace of mind, through a tough time.
It's hard enough to lose a family member or friend or loved one, and then if you leave your estate a mess for them, it makes it more difficult, right? The probate process is hard enough. It lasts so long. It's just a very difficult situation. So the easier that you can make it for the people you leave behind, the more time they're going to have to grieve and not just be working through loads of paperwork.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a really good friend of mine passed away in an accident about 3 or 4 years ago. And, of course, he was 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and as we all are, right? But life can throw you that curve, and it's his family's still dealing with some things because he had a big business and things like that. There's a lot of complexity with it, and it's been a real challenge. Even if everything is done right, it can still be difficult. But when it's not, it can be an absolute monster.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like who was it that said, Ben Franklin said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? And this is the gift you can give that next generation, making sure you get all your stuff set up right.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I work with, all my clients too, is not only do we have the documents in place, but I send everybody this very detailed questionnaire. It's like 12 pages. It might be something similar to you that you have given to prospective clients. Like, what do you own? Where is it located? How is it owned? Is it jointly owned? Is it you have beneficiaries listed on it? And we collect all these information. Give me all of your bank accounts so that I have a collection of hopefully a comprehensive collection of what they had, and I can share that information.
Yeah, that's very helpful. We had a client of ours who, big business owner, and he was having a call with his attorney, and we printed off, or we emailed him over an entire net worth page and the titling of everything as well, to help them fill out things like that for you.
Yeah, that's right.
And that gets us. See, that's why it's so important. We're like, a good attorney like yourself, working with good financial advisors and working with the CPA together. That the three amigos there, I guess, is working together so that the client can make and coordinate all of these decisions so that they can help live their best life and making sure things are taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. The team approach is always the best way. I love to have a client with a CPA and a financial advisor, because the tax planning that we may be doing in the documents, the estate planning documents, need to correlate with the financial plan and what the CPA is filing on the tax returns. Are we making large gifts? Is the CPA needs to be aware of what we're doing, and I need to be aware of what you're doing.
That's right. So, like, for example, let's say you get all your wills and everything all set up, and you've got 90+% of your assets in an IRA. Okay. Well, if you have your beneficiaries on your IRA, it doesn't really go to what the will says, right?
That's right. That's right.
So, it's going to go to whatever the IRA beneficiary state or your insurance policies, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, a little bit about that. So what can be done? Let's say, for instance, that you've got children and one's responsible and one maybe not so quite responsible. And you have an IRA account. What are some of the things that can be done to kind of put some strings on that money so where they're not going to go blow it in Vegas and things like that?
I utilize trust most often for situations like that.
Mm-hmm.
Under the Secure Act, the Secure Act passed a few years ago, and it changed the way we handle retirement accounts. Okay, so certainly the best beneficiary you can name is your spouse if you have one. You have a spousal rollover, and the spouse can stretch out the RMDs based on their life expectancy. Now, when you name your children, I should say adult children, as the beneficiary of IRAs, they have to pay the income taxes on that IRA within 10 years. We can name a trust as the beneficiary of an IRA as long as the trust meets certain requirements. The downside of that is the trust is going to pay a higher income tax rate than the individual. But if we have a beneficiary, an adult beneficiary that has some sort of drug or alcohol addiction, or maybe has an addiction to gambling, then I personally would rather take the higher income tax hit, hold the money in the trust, and be able to pay for things that the child needs, as opposed to just giving the child the retirement account outright and then have them potentially go hurt themselves or make bad, decisions with that money.
Right.
So there's trade-offs of doing, leaving it in trust or pushing it outright to the beneficiary.
Yeah. That is, there is some ways to have some control over it, but it's not like free control. There is some downside to that, but if you are dealing with that situation, sometimes the benefit's worth the cost.
That's right.
Right. And those are some of the things that you go over with your clients, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We always take into consideration taxes, specifically with the IRAs, because there's so much change related to those, and little caveats, right? So if you have a beneficiary that's disabled, that beneficiary, we can name a special needs trust or a supplemental needs trust as the beneficiary, and we can stretch out the RMDs based on their life expectancy.
That's
or if you're a beneficiary that's under age 21, we can stretch out the RMDs. The 10-year rule does not apply in all situations.
That's right. The complexity of the Secure Act and those nuances, and guess what? They change all the time, right?
That's right. That's right. I mean, every month I feel like we get new guidance on, for instance, most recent I think was the minor child. Like, well, they said, if it's minor child, we can stretch out the RMDs based on life expectancy. Well, what's a minor child? 18, 21, 26? I mean, you've used all three of those numbers in other places in the Internal Revenue Code. So they finally came out and said, well, we're going to stick with 21.
We're just going to wing it. We're just going to wing it, and we'll fix it later, and then you don't know. And then they said, oh, wait, 3 or 4 years down the road, this is what a minor child means. That's right. So I think you mentioned something, talking about minor children. Let's say you're younger, right? And you've done really well for yourself, and your children are under 18. With taking care of the kids, like if you and your parent passed away tragically, guardianship over the kids, right? Is that the term used?
Guardian.
Yeah. I mean, kids can be real cute if you've got a $7 to $8 million net worth. But it can get real cute real fast. But the intentions aren't really for the children. So being thoughtful not only about what happens to you, but also, hey, really, who is going to take care of your children? God forbid if something does happen, up until they're the age of majority as well.
Right. And a lot of times when we have individuals, young working professionals that have young children, we absolutely need to have a plan in place for them, right? We need to have a will that appoints a guardian in case something happened to both parents. And then we need to have a trust, right? So who's going to manage the funds? We need to hold the funds in trust until they reach a certain age, right? We don't really want to give a 18-year-old $1 million. Right? We probably don't want to give a 21-year-old $1 million.
That's true.
I like pushing those ages out, to age 30 or 35. But like we said earlier, under the power of attorney, there's a lot of temptation, right? So if you name the guardian of the children, who may be your best friends, also as the trustee, and we have 2 large life insurance policies. Let's say we have, $1 million on each parent, or $2 million on one parent. We have a $3 million estate. That's not out of the ordinary, right?
Yeah.
If you have working parents. there's a lot of temptation for the guardian to have that much access to that much money, and no oversight. So I try to encourage people having co-trustees or having a corporate trustee for a period of time, like somebody that is not going to be tempted to dip into the funds,
Yeah.
For their own vacation or for their own children's Christmas presents, right?
Right.
Inflation's hitting us all right now, so
yeah. I think I could be a better guardian if I had a new car.
That's right.
That's right.
Suburban would be just what I needed.
That's right. We need a new truck for that. But yeah, so like making sure you have balance of power, so that one person doesn't have all the keys.
That's right.
Is that kind of what you're saying? Okay.
That's right. I'm in the garden maybe as a co-trustee with somebody that doesn't have that temptation.
We'll say that again.
I said naming the guardian as a co-trustee.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And if somehow, like, again, going back, if you didn't really have somebody that you felt fit that bill, you could have corporate trustees, things like that, where, hey, they basically it's kind of a business. That's what they do.
Right.
And they follow these blueprints that you lay out and design it and manage it for you, which, again, this is life. We're not talking about only rainbows and butterflies here, but I've seen it where there has been addiction issues with the next generation, and it's a lot of pressure to have a family member on the purse strings with dealing with another family member that may not be responsible, and having that corporate trustee that has a little bit of coldness, or they just follow the rules. Hey, this is a rule, and they don't have to be influenced.
That's right. They're not going to get pushed over, especially somebody in their 20s that does have a drug or alcohol addiction.
Right.
That are constantly calling the trustees and harassing them. I need money for this. I need money for that.
Yeah.
The corporate trustees, they can call them all day long, and it's not going to affect them the way it would maybe a family member or a family friend that's known this child their entire life.
Yeah. I'll say it this way, is that, if you have, if the listener, if you have done all this work and been financially successful, all right, you also have a responsibility to a fiduciary responsibility. I'm going to say this, to be able to have things set up so that the burden of your hard work is taken care of the best way possible. And some people may not have the skill set or the knowledge, and some people do, and making sure that you do the best you can, while you're living and of sound mind to get things situated in a way that it makes it as a benefit for the next generation instead of a burden.
That's exactly right.
That makes sense. What are some other things that business owners or retirees may need to be thinking about? What about, like I've moved in from out of state. Let's say that's because, my goodness, is there anybody left from South Carolina here? I think I was born and raised in South Carolina. I think I'm also now the minority.
Right.
Everybody is from New Jersey or Ohio.
I know. I love when I meet with somebody. I'm from Camden, which is about 2.5 hours away from here.
Yeah.
In South Carolina. And so somebody would be like, "Oh, you're from here." And I said, "No, I'm from Camden." They're like, "Oh, you're a local." I'm like,
that's right. That's right. So, yeah.
South Carolinian,
yes. Yeah. So it's Myrtle Beach. What? No one's local, really. Yeah. So I think, though, Megan, and this is going to be kind of is that if you have an accent like we do, then you're automatically local.
Yes,
okay.
Right.
Now I'm going to say this, a little theory, and we're getting off topic here, but it's an important topic. The closer to the coast you are, the less of an accent you have. The further west you go, the more of an accent you have.
Do I have an accent?
A little bit, a little bit, a little bit. I'll say this though. I think it kind of goes, it goes down the closer to Columbia you get.
That's right.
In between Columbia and Myrtle Beach, your accent goes up. There's a certain twang to it, and that's where I am. I digress. All right, so you're moving in from out of state. Okay, is everything fine? Now that I had all my stuff set up in New York, what's the deal here?
Yes, have an attorney here look at the plan, right? So a lot of the times the plans are just fine. They transfer state lines without issue. But if your intent is to remain in South Carolina, then get South Carolina documents. The cost isn't that much, and it's going to make it easier on your heirs, right? Our doctors here are familiar with South Carolina forms. The banks here, if you have a New York power of attorney, it has to be recorded in New York, and then it has to be recorded here for a bank to be able to use it. So usually in that case, the recording fees are so high in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, that it's cheaper just to have another power of attorney drawn up here and recorded,
Okay. Well, I mean, all right. So what are you talking about as far as time wise for someone like you, or what? Do they just call you up and say, "Hey, I moved in, everything's updated," but like how hard is that to do?
Yeah, not hard. So when somebody calls, and I have this, I mean, I get calls every day of people out of state that move here with sophisticated plans that maybe were just done 2 years ago. And when we look at them, talk about whether we want to make changes, the benefits of having South Carolina documents, right? So we don't want a South Carolina court interpreting New Jersey law.
Right.
That's what would happen. So call my office. We fill out a questionnaire and I collect all of your information. I'd like for you to send me the documents ahead of time, especially if you're coming to me with a 60-page trust. I can answer your questions on it if I've read it ahead of time.
Right.
And then talk about benefits and do we actually need to change it? Can it stay? Can we have a New York trust? Sure. So long as it's executed in accordance with South Carolina law, and it has everything that I think you should have in it and that our law requires you have in it. So it may just be that you want to make an amendment. We can do that as well.
Okay. So it doesn't sound to be too painless moving in from out of state. As long as they give you a call and you get them up, you make sure they set it right.
Hopefully not too painful.
Yeah, that's right. And if they're working with us, then normally we'll have those documents and we can email those over secure and take care of that step for you, and which is very, very helpful. So because really and truly you saved all this money and done all these things, and to live your best life, and hopefully you're doing the best you can to help that next generation be better off as well. And so coordinating the financial advisor with, an excellent attorney like Meghan can certainly help do that. Well, Meghan, it's been very enlightening and to be able to have you on the podcast and share some information about what some pre-retirees and retirees can do to make sure that they're prepared for incapacity, passing on to the next generation, some things they need to have in place. If someone needed your service, right, or wanted to double check what they had, how would they get in contact with you?
You could call my office. That number's 843-314-8044, or email me. It's Meghan, and I'll spell it in just a minute. Meghan at lawofficeofmeghanbarnes.com, and Meghan is MEGHAN. So email or call. We are happy to send you the questionnaire to fill out and get you on the calendar to come in. Biggest thing to keep in mind is have documents in place, right? Power of attorney for healthcare and financial decisions. Have a will to control the assets and appoint a personal representative to manage your estate once you pass away, and maybe look at using a trust to avoid probate.
Perfect.
A lot to discuss in a little amount of time.
Yeah, that's true. The good news is that the listener don't have to think about this kind of stuff. All you got to do is call. It's someone. We got people. These are people that take care of that for you, right? And you got a website too?
I do. It's lawofficeofmeghanbarnes.com.
Perfect. And all this will be in the show notes, so that at any point in time you can click and check her website out, or give her a phone call, and she'll help you, shoot you in the right direction. I mean, obviously you can give us a call over here at Riverbend Wealth Management. Happy to help you, answer any questions. 843-970-1049, or check our website out, riverbendwealthmanagement.com. You can click the links there to set up a phone appointment, or there's a lot of blogs there too that can speak to this regard too. And Meghan, believe it or not, now I think you remember this. You were one of my first podcasts to get guest like a year ago.
It was a while. Yeah.
It was a while back, right? Yeah. So that was good. Well, thank you so very, very much for coming on the show and sharing some good information and helping shoot people in the right direction.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Thanks, Meghan.
Podcast. All right.
Hey, Jeremy, do you remember the last time I took my entire engine apart in my car?
No, I do not.
Yeah, never. Next question. You remember the last time I performed my own surgery?
Yeah, never. No, but sometimes I think you might have done that.
I'm telling you, right? Or said inflation's kind of high right now. I'm kind of looking at it. No, but seriously, that's complicated stuff. And what I'm hearing from both of you is that both of your jobs, you handle complicated stuff. And I just personally think that nobody should do it on their own. Like they shouldn't do their own surgery, and they shouldn't take their entire car engine apart, because that's not going back together. So I hope people do reach out to both of you because that's, what you're there for. So again, Meghan, thank you so much for being on the show. Jeremy, of course, thank you for facilitating this and bringing on another amazing guest. Sure. And our last thank you is always for you, listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Retire Happy podcast with Jeremy Finger. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Jeremy comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. And we humbly ask you to share this podcast, rate it, and leave a review, as this actually helps other people find the show. And if you've got a friend who is doing their own surgery or taking their engine apart, share this podcast with them, because good Lord, they shouldn't be doing that either. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Riverbend Wealth Management, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Retire Happy podcast with certified financial planner Jeremy Finger. If you have any questions, please visit us at www.riverbendwealthmanagement.com or call us at 843-970-1043. And remember, click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.
Investment advice offered through Stratus Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor doing business as Riverbend Wealth Management. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.